It all kicked off when I was just a teenager, about 19, and my mom was off on a work trip. Our family had always been tight, or at least, that's what I figured. My dad, Mike Carter, was the laid back parent. He didn't sweat the small stuff, never grilled me with a million questions, and always had a way of cracking me up. I never felt weird around him until that summer, the summer when everything flipped upside down. Mom jetted off to the States for her job, and as usual, Dad and I had the place to ourselves. I was cool with it by now. Mom's job had her traveling all the time, so this wasn't anything new. But this time, there was this vibe between us I hadn't picked up on before, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. Dad had always been the touchy-feely type, but now, the way he stared at me, the way he chatted me up, it hit different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something was off. He started paying way more attention to me, tossing out compliments he'd never bothered with before. "You're growing up, Emily," he said one night while we were chilling in the living room, watching some random flick. "You're starting to look just like your mom." I brushed it off with a laugh, thinking it was just a dad-daughter thing, but the way he said it stuck with me. As the days rolled by, I started catching little stuff. He'd walk by and let his hand rest on my arm a tad longer than normal, or he'd drop compliments that made my stomach do flips, like how he liked my new sneakers or the way my ponytail bounced when I walked. It wasn't straight up weird, but there was this undertone that didn't sit right. I tried to shake it off. Come on, it's my dad. He wouldn't mean anything by it, right? One night, about a week after Mom left, I got back from hanging at a friend's place. Dad was in the kitchen whipping up dinner. He flashed me a grin, but there was this odd glint in his eyes I couldn't figure out. I stepped over to grab some plates for the table, and as I reached past him, his fingers brushed mine. It was such a tiny move, but it sent a jolt through me. I yanked my hand back quick, a lump lodging in my throat. I couldn't meet his gaze. "You good, Emily?" he asked, his voice all soft. "Yeah, I'm fine," I mumbled, dodging his eyes. We sat down to eat, and the quiet between us was heavy. I wanted to say something to break it, but I didn't even know what I was feeling, let alone how to bring it up. After dinner, we plopped on the couch to watch TV, our usual routine. But tonight, it felt off. He sat closer than he normally would, his arm slung lazily over the back of the couch, his knee brushing mine. My chest tightened, and my heart started pounding. I didn't know if it was nerves or something else, something I wasn't ready to name. The show had this messy relationship scene that felt way too real, and it ramped up the awkwardness, not just on the screen, but between us. I snuck a glance at Dad, and for a split second, our eyes locked. The look he gave me wasn't the usual dad vibe. It was something deeper, something that spooked me and piqued my curiosity all at once. I shot up fast, needing to ditch the heaviness. "I'm heading to bed," I blurted, not waiting for him to say anything. I could feel his stare on me as I bolted out, my skin prickling with a mess of feelings I couldn't sort out. Lying in bed that night, I couldn't shake how he'd looked at me. It was like a switch had flipped between us, and I wasn't sure I could handle what it meant. I tossed and turned, trying to convince myself I was reading too much into it. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. The next few days were a haze. I dodged being alone with Dad, making up reasons to dip out of the house or hole up in my room. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't dodge the way he acted around me. It was like there was this unspoken line between us, and we were both inching way too close to it. Then one night, it all hit a peak. I was in the kitchen grabbing a late-night snack when Dad strolled in. It was late, the house dead quiet, and I hadn't expected him. My heart kicked into overdrive. "Can't sleep?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Yeah," I said, that familiar tension creeping back. He stepped closer, too close, his eyes locking onto mine. My pulse raced, and my brain yelled at me to back off, to put some space between us. But my feet wouldn't budge. "Emily," he said, his voice low, barely above a whisper. "You know I care about you, right?" I nodded, too rattled to speak. His hand reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. It was so soft, So personal, it made my stomach twist. This wasn't right. I knew it wasn't, but I couldn't budge. He started to say something, but the doorbell chimed, snapping us both out of it. We flinched, caught off guard by the sudden noise. My heart was hammering as I stepped back fast. "I'll get it," I said, my voice wobbly, practically sprinting to the door, thankful for the break. When I swung it open, I froze. There was my mom, suitcase in hand, standing on the porch. She wasn't due back for a few more days. "Thought I'd surprise you guys," she said with a grin, totally clueless about the weirdness brewing inside while she'd been gone. I plastered on a smile and moved aside to let her in, my head spinning with relief and a jumble of thoughts. Had she just swooped in and stopped something weird from happening? Or was I blowing it all out of proportion? As Mom stepped inside, she called out to Dad, Mike Carter, who looked just as rattled as I felt. They swapped some small talk, but I could see it in his eyes. That same tension simmering between us hadn't gone anywhere. It was buried just under the surface, and now with Mom back, it felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. I wasn't prepared for what was coming next, though. The days after her surprise return were awkward as heck. I felt like I was tiptoeing around, trying to act chill when everything inside me was a mess. Dad was doing the same. He kept his distance and barely looked my way, but that unspoken vibe between us hung around like a dark cloud waiting to burst. Mom, of course, didn't catch on. She was just happy to be home, too caught up in her own world to notice how off things had gotten. Or maybe she did, but was too swamped with work to care. Either way, I was glad she was around. Then one day, Dad knocked on my door. "Hey, Emily," he said, his voice shaky. "Can we chat?" My stomach dropped. I didn't want to talk, didn't want to be alone with him, but I couldn't dodge him forever. I cracked the door open just enough to see his face. He looked jittery, like he didn't know where to start. "About what?" I asked, barely keeping my voice steady. He rubbed the back of his neck. Things have felt off between us lately, and I don't want that. I'm your dad, and I care about you. I don't want you feeling weird around me." I stared at him, not sure what to say. Part of me wanted to buy it, to believe I'd dreamed up the way he'd been eyeing me, brushing against me. But another part knew better. I'd felt it. He'd felt it. And we were both acting like it wasn't there. "I'm fine," I lied, hoping that'd kill the convo. It didn't. "Emily," he said, stepping closer. "I don't want you feeling like you can't talk to me. If something's bugging you, just say it." My throat tightened. This was too much. I couldn't deal. I backed up, shaking my head. "I'm fine, Dad, really, let's just drop it." He opened his mouth to argue, but the front door flew open, and Mom's voice boomed through the house. "I'm back!" she shouted, her boots clomping as she hit the kitchen. Relief washed over me. I darted past Dad and bolted downstairs, grateful for the save. Again. I heard him sigh behind me, but he didn't follow. Over the next few days, things settled into something like normal, or as close as it could get. I steered clear of being alone with Dad whenever I could, and when Mom was around, we faked it like everything was cool. But that uneasy feeling stuck around, and I knew it wasn't done. One night, about a week after Mom got back, she pulled me aside after dinner. "Emily," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I've noticed you've been acting off lately. Everything okay?" My heart sank. Of course she'd picked up on it. How could she not? I'd been dodging Dad, barely talking to him unless I had to, and even then, I couldn't look him in the eye. But what was I going to say? That her husband, my dad, had been acting in ways that left me confused and uneasy? "I'm fine, Mom," I said, forcing a grin. "Just stressed about school, I guess." She studied me for a sec, her eyes narrowing like she wasn't buying it, but she didn't push. She gave me a warm smile and nodded. "Okay, just know if something's up, you can talk to me." I nodded back, though I knew I wouldn't. Not about this. Things kept rolling like that for a bit. Quiet tension, stuff left unsaid, and me trying to convince myself it was all in my head. But then something happened that flipped everything upside down. It was a Saturday, and Mom had gone out with friends for the night, leaving me and Dad alone again. I could feel the air get thick the second she walked out. I tried to hide out in my room, but after a couple hours, my stomach growled, and I headed downstairs for a snack. Dad was in the living room, watching TV. When he saw me, he clicked it off and stood up. My heart kicked into high gear right away. That same old uneasy feeling crept up, tightening my throat. "Hey, Emily," Dad, Mike Carter said, his voice laid back, but there was this edge to it that made my skin prickle. "Hi," I mumbled, dodging his gaze as I snagged a bag of pretzels from the cabinet. I was about to hightail it back upstairs when he spoke again, quieter this time. "Emily, can we just talk? I don't like how things have been between us." I stopped dead, my back to him. I didn't want to chat, didn't want to be left alone with him. But what could I do? Slowly, I turned around, my gut twisting. He stepped closer, too close, his eyes fixed on mine. My heart sped up, my breaths coming fast. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, his hand resting on my elbow. "Maybe we should sort things out. There's this odd feel between us, and I think we need to talk it over." I gulped, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know what you mean," I said, but we both knew that was a lie. His hand lingered on my arm too long, and for a moment I thought he might say more, something that had crossed that unseen line we'd been skirting. But then, like a lucky break, the doorbell rang. I jumped, startled by the sound, and pulled away from him. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it'd leap out. "I'll get it," I rushed, racing to the door. When I swung it open, there was Mom again, her face white, eyes wide with something like fear. "Mom, what's wrong?" She didn't reply right away. Instead, she looked past me into the house, checking the room like she was hunting for hints. Then her eyes flicked back to me, her voice wobbly. "I need to talk to your dad." And just like that, I knew. She'd caught on to something, or at least felt the strangeness. My gut sank as I moved aside to let her in. As she passed me, I glanced at Dad, who stood frozen in the living room, his face pale. In that moment, everything changed. The strain we'd been avoiding had finally split open. Mom knew something, and I wasn't sure if it'd tear us apart, but it felt like we were balanced on a cliff, ready to fall. This is an artistic and fictional creation intended for both entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or events is purely coincidental. Some scenes and dialogues in the video are part of a dramatized performance and incorporate elements of grotesque, satire, and exaggeration. The creator stands against discrimination, violence, and hatred. This channel fully complies with YouTube's policies and does not infringe upon copyright laws.